on 90.3 FM. And that means it's time for Helping Seniors of Brevard. That music of your life ushers in this edition of Helping Seniors of Brevard. And right now, let's catch up with Kerry Fink and this edition of Helping Seniors of Brevard. Hi, Kerry.
Hey, John Harper, and thank you for the kind introduction. And, on behalf of Joe Steckler, who's our president and founder, and also Kim Bernard, our education specialist, it's really, things are kind of pleasant these days. I was just talking with John Roberts with Palm Bay Hearing Aid Center, who's our guest today, John Harper. And one of the things that's, we were talking about, so there's 4 of us in here, and 3 out of 4 have now had both COVID vaccination shots. And so now that they've changed the rules so that those of us who are over 50 are eligible, I imagine 1 week very soon, I'll be able to come and report I've joined the club.
Well, we're anxious to have you join, Kerry.
I'm looking forward to it, and it's really good to hear that everybody has really done well and had no challenges with it. And so I got to tell you, we were also talking about just before the show began, we were out at the American Muscle Car Museum on this weekend because we had the Helping Seniors car raffle cars out there. We actually had all 4 of them out there, the 2021 Challenger, the Dodge Challenger. We had the Chevrolet Camaro out there. We had the Mazda Miata, a little pretty white convertible, and we had even the Kia Sportage was out there, and people were actually getting a chance to look at all those great vehicles. In fact, AJ Hires himself popped by to say hello, so that was a pleasant day. But it was all for the Cape Canaveral Antique Auto Club was having a big show out there, and they said they'd had a big show last year, John, but what they said this year, they had 555 cars registered. And if you go either to the Helping Seniors Facebook page or the American Muscle Car Museum page, they got, one of those drone shots, how they go up above the building and take a picture, and you see like every parking spot, and every car. They had so many different cars there. It was absolutely amazing. They said it was a record for the number of cars, and so it was 555 cars outside, and then of course Mark has his own collection of like 300 cars inside. So it was amazing and impressive. And the people, what we were talking about was the amount of people that are out and about now.
It's an impressive number of cars. What was your favorite car out there?
Well, we did a clip that I really enjoyed. We were standing by a DeLorean, and so we were making all these back-in-time jokes about it. And I just thought that was fun because I think the movie is back out if you can catch it on a lot of the streaming services now. And it's just one of those classic movies where they take a DeLorean and turn it into a time machine. And so this person had a absolute mint condition DeLorean. And I was talking with a gentleman out there. He said, when DeLorean went out of business, he said the dealership in Atlanta offered me the opportunity to buy 2 DeLoreans for the price of one. So now again, you got to go back. This was 1980, but for $11,000, he could have bought 2 DeLoreans. Wow. Can you imagine what that might have turned into today?
I had the chance to meet several times John DeLorean in Detroit. Nice guy and very interesting, very charming individual, and he had a great thing going there for a while.
Oh, it's a classic car. Oh, that's right, because you have all that Motor City history. You were like king of all the Detroit news and everything going on there too. I forget about that. Yeah. But
it was fun, and he would come by our station WXYZ quite a bit and be interviewed on many of our talk shows. He lived right there in what was called Bloomfield Hills, and he was a good guy.
Oh, that's great. Well, that was fun. So it was a great day, and we sold a lot of Helping Seniors car raffle tickets, and people, it's so important that people get involved and help us in this because that is how we keep this all moving forward. And so I was actually just handing off tickets to John Roberts with Palm Bay Hearing Aid Center because, again, this year, he and his team have kindly agreed to be helping us with those tickets, right?
Yeah, we're looking forward to handing them out. We have a lot of old friends and new people coming out right now. It seems like everybody is just busting at the seams to get out and get back to their normal routine.
Yeah, I am so excited. Mark Pylock was telling us that this was the first time in 14 months that he'd been able to open the museum to the public because of COVID, and it was packed. It was flat out packed. If you go to the Helping Seniors Facebook page, you can see we did a number of Facebook Live little clips, both outside the museum, checking out some of the great cars there, but also inside the museum and just seeing Mark's just unbelievable collection. And he's always adding stuff that's new because, in particular, we spotted of all things, Porsche cars are pretty cool. I mean, they're just cool to start with. But when we were there filming before the car raffle last year, he's got a shop out back where they do all the restoration, and they were working on something I'd never seen before. It's a Porsche limo. And so this was like from the 60s. So you imagine the classic Porsche style from the 60s. He turned it into somebody had turned it into a limo. It was made by Porsche as a limo. And so since that time, he's now got that car already completed. It's in the museum. It's already winning awards. And that's just the story. So even if you've been in the museum before, just even 6 months ago, there's new stuff to see. And it was absolutely packed. Everybody wanted to be out there. And so I think it's like we were talking about, people are ready to get back to normal.
They are.
So I'm glad to hear all of that. And actually today, since you're here, and again, I want to finish up the little pitch for making sure that you get your Helping Seniors car raffle tickets. By the way, we are still having the Make Good event. If you remember, last October, October 10th, we had the grand drawing for the Helping Seniors car raffle, and a gentleman by the name of Troy Darling in Indy, Atlantic, Florida, he was the winner. And so if you remember, he had his choice of the 4 cars, and he chose the Chevrolet Camaro. In fact, he chose to upgrade on him to a Chevrolet Camaro convertible. And so this year, backed by popular demand, you have the chance to choose, when you win, between a 2021 Dodge Challenger, 2021 Chevrolet Camaro, 2021 Mazda Miata convertible, or a 2021 Kia Sportage. And you can get your tickets either by calling us on the Helping Seniors info line. Kim Bernard, our education specialist, will be happy to get you set up with that. You reach her at 321-473-7770, 321-473-7770. You can get all the details, all the information. You can buy your tickets online, helpingseniors.carraffle.com, helpingseniors.carraffle.com. It couldn't be simpler than that. Or if you're a person who really wants to just go face-to-face, you can stop by any of the Boniface Hires dealerships. So that's the Mazda store, it's the Chevrolet dealership, it's the Dodge dealership in Merritt Island. And, of course, now AJ has got open that beautiful new Kia facility right there on US 192. So any one of those stores will be happy to get you set up with Helping Seniors car raffle tickets. And then, as we've been talking about, Friends of Helping Seniors have also joined us in this fundraising effort. So you can get your tickets at a lot of our friends' locations, like Bill Johnson, elder law attorney. He's got them in his office. Jennifer Helen with Seniors Helping Seniors can get you set up there. And the list goes on. But importantly, after today, John Roberts, you will have those at Palm Bay Hearing Aid Center. And I'm really looking forward to talking a little bit about, now that people are maybe getting a stimulus check in the mail, there's an opportunity to do some things that maybe they've put off. Either maybe they had the money before but just couldn't get out, or didn't want to get out until it was safe, or maybe the money was something of an issue, but now they can actually take an important step. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about, as people are looking at this part of it, we want to talk a little bit about hearing aids and the price of hearing aids. You see everything being advertised out there, and so it looks like there's just a huge price range, from probably things that are no better than sticking like a tin can in your ear or something, to things that really help.
Oh yeah, that's been true forever. There's always people that are trying to get in on the action, so to speak, with something cheap, as far as hearing aids go. Basically, though, I'll tell you something. There are 6 companies that make about 90% of the hearing aids that people are fit today, fit by professionals. And all of these companies are at least 50 years old, and they have really done an incredible job on the technology with hearing aids. Now, there is there's an ability for people that may think they have a mild hearing loss to buy hearing aids over the counter. They're called over the counter hearing aids. When people self-assess their hearing, they're not real good at it.
Right.
I have people that come in and they have maybe a severe or profound hearing loss, but when you ask them, they'll say, I don't know if I have any hearing loss.
Wow.
So without a good audiometric evaluation, which we'll do at no charge for anybody that comes into our office, you really don't know if those hearing aids are even going to do damage to your hearing. You need to have your ear canals looked at. There's a number of hygiene and health issues involved. There's all kinds of things that can go on in the ear that can cause the same symptoms as a regular hearing loss, but the hearing aids may do absolutely nothing, or in the worst case scenario, do a lot of damage. So,
wow. So let me ask you about that, because you just taught me something I had never heard before, that the wrong hearing aids may be worse than no hearing aids.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody has their own unique hearing, and when you develop a hearing loss across the spectrum of different frequencies, you're going to have a pattern that's yours uniquely. It's not just that everything is softer. Some things are softer. Some things may actually get louder when you have a hearing loss.
Wow.
And if you don't attenuate the loud sounds and put extra gain into the areas where you need it, and separate some of the speech from the background noise, all you'll do is hear everything loud, just like you did before, only everything's loud. You still can't understand people. So I can't stress the significance of having hearing aids properly fit. Now, with the cheap hearing aids, they are limited. They can't put enough gain to handle even a moderate hearing loss, and that's predictable problems.
Well, I was going to ask you, because one of the things, when we see, we get bombarded, as you know, with ads. I've had this conversation so many times with Barbara McIntyre with Reverse Mortgage Funding, who has been a longtime friend of Helping Seniors. And she says she gets a lot of calls because people will see an ad on national TV, and then they will call her because they want to get like the straight story. And so I think it's a lot of times the same. We see all these ads on national, oh, you can get hearing aids for X dollars. But now what you've just shared, I think, is really vital information that you might actually be have the potential to actually create more harm for yourself than even that you think you're trying to help.
Yeah, there's a factor called speech discrimination, and hand in hand with another factor called permanent speech distortion. Permanent speech distortion is something that accrues every year. It gets worse, that you have a hearing loss. You don't hear with your ears, you hear with your brain. The nerve center in the ear, the cochlea, just sends the signal to the audiological processing center, which is the part of the brain that interprets speech. Now, after a while, if it's not hearing speech the right way, it will literally forget how to interpret certain speech sounds, especially the soft, high-frequency letters, like S and F and SH, fricatives like TH, SH, ST. Those are tiny little bursts of air compared with vowel sounds like A, E, I, O. So if those sounds are not reaching the audiological processing center, eventually it will just blend them together and they will all sound the same. So if somebody says something like mother fell down, you may hear brother fell frown, or any other number of combinations of things like that. Now that cannot be undone with any type of a hearing aid or amplification device. So the key in fitting a hearing loss to get a good prognosis is not to let it get so bad that all these letters are conflating with each other.
Well, that was a point that you mentioned. You said that there is there's also a challenge. We've already talked about the challenge of maybe, my father used to have this expression, always get the right tool for the job. And what we just talked about was maybe how some of the over-the-counter hearing aids, are really probably not the right tool for the job. But another factor that you pointed out just now is the fact that there is definitely a reason why you want to come in and start working on hearing early. as opposed to later. You just laid it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you something too. People are not really going for the over-the-counter hearing aids as much as you might think. They're advertising a lot, so somebody is. But younger people tend to overestimate their hearing loss, and older people tend to underestimate their hearing loss.
Okay.
So I think a lot of younger people are going in and buying these hearing aids because I haven't had hardly anybody bringing one of those things into my office, and I don't know if anybody that's really wearing them.
Yeah. Well, so, I guess the other thing that we keep thinking about, though, kind of going back to the theme that we opened up the show with people getting back out and into the marketplace. And I know, as people are getting vaccinated, we're a little, maybe we should not. I don't know. I'm not getting into that whole discussion. I tend to follow CDC guidance and just try to stay with that. But I know a lot of people are now getting concerned about, well, how does my face look under the mask? But so folks like Dr. Lee Sheldon, who's been a partner with Helping Seniors for years, I guess he'll see like a big uptick with people saying, well, now I got to make sure my smile is okay. But I was thinking the reverse. When they tell us to wear the mask, it's still the same thing. It makes people who have a hearing loss have an even more challenging time in understanding, the people that they're around.
That's something that I hear every single day. I have normal hearing, and you probably do too. And you know how hard it can be when you go into a gas station, and the gal is back there, and she has a mask on, and there's a piece of glass in front of her, right?
Right.
There's music playing, and
Right.
there's people coming in and out, and kids yelling. And she says, blah, blah, blah. What? What did she say? You can't hear her. Now, can you imagine somebody that has a real hearing loss and
Wow.
putting that on top of, they normally would have a great deal of difficulty hearing her in perfect situations. But if they can read her face, they can usually interpret it, at least somewhat.
Yeah. So we're talking with John Roberts of Palm Bay Hearing Aid Center. And let me say this right. You're a board-certified hearing you have like this really impressive title. I want to make sure people get that we're not talking with somebody who doesn't really have the chops in this.
Yeah, I got to get it right too. Let's see. Board certified in hearing instrument sciences.
Wow. Well, that sounds impressive. But also, I remember talking with you about your own background. You started up in Michigan, so I mean, you've done this for many years, and you've seen some amazing technology improvements come along the way.
Yeah, I started in the late 80s, I guess it was, up in Michigan. When I started, we didn't have computers to program hearing aids or to do audiological testing. We just had a sound booth, a headset, a fingernail file, a little screwdriver to adjust the pitch with, and a grinder to make them comfortable. Now everything is, of course, extremely complex and technological with very, very powerful software tools and remote tools, so we can actually program people while they're even in their own house now. So
yeah, I remember we were talking about that kind of at the height of the pandemic, and you were mentioning that because of some of the technological advances on some of the later models, you were actually able to tweak things literally over the phone.
Yeah, that's something that was just being perfected when the virus hit, fortunately for everybody. And it's really becoming handy right now. Yeah, we can call, somebody can call us up and say, hey, I'm in a restaurant and I can't hear.
So, let me see if I can help you.
We'll patch into their phone and see what they're hearing and what they're not hearing and tweak it and fix it right there.
Yeah, and speaking of kind of like that customer service, I have seen you go out of your way. I remember Joe Steckler, our president and founder, he had, because of his service, he's a retired Navy captain. I guess he'd gotten some hearing aids through VA, and they were supposed to be like latest and greatest, but they still weren't helping him as much as he'd hoped when he was here hosting this radio show. And I remember you were the guest that day, and after the show, you got out little screwdrivers and you got them going. It was pretty amazing. Yeah,
and that kind of brings up another point too, that hearing aids are still very small, complex devices. You're taking a lot of technology with a tiny microphone that's not much bigger than a period at the end of a sentence, and sticking that into a 99-degree ear with moisture and wax and humidity. Wow. And of course the environment that you're in. So when you get a good set of hearing aids, and Joe had a good set of hearing aids, Yeah, you need to have somebody take a look at them. We see all of our patients about 3 or 4 times a year, and we test their hearing every year. But when they come in for their quarterly visits, we look at their hearing aids, we look in their ears, make sure they don't have any wax or other situations going on there. We clean the filters, change the filters in the hearing aids, we dehumidify the hearing aids, and then we objectively verify if they're working properly. And most of the time, there's adjustments that need to be made. There's things that need to be changed. So if you're wearing hearing aids and you haven't had them looked at in a year or more, chances are very, very good that they're not working right. You really need to get in and have somebody look at them. And we'll do that. We'll do the first visit at no charge, too. So,
well, that's what I was going to say, too. It's another argument against the cheap over-the-counter is just what you're talking about, that you do need some professional help to make sure you are getting the most out of these as goes along. And I've also heard you in the past talk about being very, very much on top of helping people figure out the best path with all of that. So as we come back for the second half of the Helping Seniors radio show, we're going to get into a topic of tinnitus. And I'm looking forward to learning about that, because some of you guys may have seen even a news report recently that had to do with that. And so we're going to talk a little bit about tinnitus, treatments available, and of course dig a little bit more into making sure that you have the best hearing possible. So as we come around to the second half of the radio show, you'll want to be here with our special guest, John Roberts, who's board certified hearing, say the rest of it,
instrument sciences.
That sounds so good. All right, we'll see you on the other side of the break.
90.3 FM, that music of your life means it's time to get back to our host, Kerry Fink, along with our guest.
John, that's right. Thank you, John Harper. Yes, on behalf of Joe Steckler, our president and founder, Kim Bernard, our education specialist, welcome back to part 2 of Helping Seniors Radio. And we were just talking here during the break that John Roberts, who is with Palm Bay Hearing Aid Center, he's an expert audiologist, and he is with us here in the studio today. And we've been talking a little bit about hearing, and we were just commenting on the announcement, the public service announcement during the mid-show break, where they were talking about, do you feel like a ringing in your ears or things like that? And wow, what a perfect lead-in to the discussion that we wanted to have anyway during the second half of this radio program, because the word of this half hour is tinnitus. And I guess I always call it a ringing in my ears, but I'm not even sure if am I saying that the right way? Is that what we mean when we say tinnitus?
Tinnitus or tinnitus, both pronunciations are
okay.
Good. Involves ringing in the ears, whether it's very light and occasional or whether it's intense and constant.
And that's pretty brutal when you're living with something like that, I think.
Oh, it can be absolutely a dramatic changer in the quality of life. All of us hear a little tinnitus every now and then. Mm-hmm. I believe it's true, and I've heard it, and a doctor told me this was true. If you count the number of seconds that you normally hear that ring, I think it's 18 seconds. That's one of your little hair cells dying in your inner ear, in your cochlea.
Wow.
Fortunately, we have several thousand of them, so it's not a big deal when we lose one now and then. But now, if you've ever attended a concert or been exposed to intense noise, you might notice that you hear that ringing going mm-hmm. on for a day or 2 days. Sometimes it kind of make you feel, a bit nauseous or ill at ease. Mm-hmm. That's irreparable harm being done to your inner ear.
Wow.
Or your cochlea, and that piles up. It's something that is addition. It adds to it each time you experience it. So for people that their livelihood involves being around machinery or a lot of loud sound, of course, the chances of having significant tinnitus is increased. The number of people that have tinnitus and hearing loss, if you took 100 people and that had tinnitus and tested their hearing, over 80 of them would have at least some hearing loss, most of it in the high frequencies. So the correlation between tinnitus and hearing loss is positive, more than a positive one. It's very strong correlation.
So when we talk about this is something that probably gets a little bit more prevalent too as we age typically?
Yeah, due to the cumulative effects of noise-induced hearing loss and ototoxicity, a lot of medications that we take are ototoxic.
Now, you just used a word that I don't know. Is when you say oto, is that like O-T-O?
Exactly. That's the Greek word for ear.
Okay.
And toxic. So
a medicine
toxic to the
is
ear.
actually not, that you might be taking for something else, could actually be giving you a problem with your ear.
Yeah, a great deal of medications are. The aspirin is one that comes to mind most readily.
Wow.
Now, that doesn't mean if you're taking a baby aspirin to, control your heart, that's going to cause tinnitus or hearing loss. Everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are going to be more susceptible to these issues. Blood thinners are another very ototoxic medication. So if you do have a hearing loss and you're being prescribed things like blood thinners, Coumadin, aspirin, or any medication, high blood pressure medication can be ototoxic.
Wow.
And, a lot of my patients are taking several different high blood pressure medications, which may be necessary, but when the doctor is asked if they could possibly do something different to reduce this issue, oftentimes they will.
Well, it's interesting because I guess we get these medications and we start to read side effects and things like that, and I don't know that we necessarily know about things like that.
No, who reads all those warning notices?
Right.
My goodness, you'd have to be a doctor to even understand it.
Right. So I guess the question is, if you do find yourself with this, maybe this ringing or this, somebody's told you this, what it is, the bigger question is, can you do anything about it?
Yeah. There's really, there's no solution that's going to work for everybody as far as tinnitus goes. I know there has been a lot of advertising, and we handle a product in our office, Lipid, that they just did a study on, and the effective rate of it seemed like it was pretty good. It was 20 or 30%. But when you read into that further, it was the same amount as a placebo.
Oh.
But if a placebo works, more power to it, right? Whatever's going to help. Now, the only thing that's really been proven to help in more than a placebo is hearing aids. Mm-hmm. And just by the act of putting hearing aids on alone can often reduce tinnitus or, just as importantly, stop it from increasing. If the tinnitus is due to a hearing loss, as the hearing loss gets worse and sensorineural or nerve hearing losses involving the cochlea or the inner ear are what we deal with almost exclusively, and 90% of our fittings are nerve losses. Those are chronic and they're progressive. They get worse every year. Now, if you start having ringing associated with that, the reason may be due to a factor called phantom hearing. You've heard of phantom leg, where if you lose a leg to amputation, you may feel that you have itchy toes. Or if you lose an arm, you may feel your fingers are numb. When you lose your high-frequency hearing, your brain may want to replace it.
Wow.
So that's going to be a high-pitched ring, right? And at first, it'll be soft and barely noticeable. But it can increase as the hearing loss gets worse. Now, some people are going to interpret it as a high-pitched ring. That's most common. Other people describe it as crickets. Other people will hear a roar. Some people will actually hear music or voices even. It's all a matter of how they interpret what the brain is putting in there to replace the high frequencies.
Wow.
So we get people that come in and they are just a basket case from this. I mean, they think that there's something very seriously wrong psychologically or other factors. And if nothing else, you need to be put at ease that it's not anything that you can't address. That maybe you should come in and talk to a professional about this, and at least put your mind at ease as to the fact that it may be more common than you think. Other people may be suffering with this issue. And in most cases, by putting the right hearing aids on somebody with a high-frequency hearing loss, we will at least arrest it, stop it from getting worse over the years as their hearing loss gets worse. So in a lot of cases, we will eliminate it. We also have devices called masking devices that we can put into hearing aids that will create a white or a pink noise that will mask the tinnitus. And if that's used properly, often there's a good success ratio with that type of application too. But the important thing is not to just try to ignore it or just be belittled by it or be completely depressed and strung out by it. The important thing is, like anything else you might run into, is to address it. Talk with somebody that knows what they're talking about and see if there's maybe a solution.
Kerry, a question for our guest, John. I've had this for years, John, and have learned to live with it. It is quite loud. I often explain it's like standing next to someone who's firing a gun.
Wow.
And not the gun itself, but that ringing sound that you get after the gun has been fired.
Sure.
That's what it sounds like with me. I've been on jets, and I can still hear it, even with all the jet noise and the wind and all of that. It never goes away, but somehow or another I've learned to, for the most part, adjust to it and live with it. It usually doesn't bother me, even though it is quite loud. If I had it on a VU meter, John, I'd say it would be registering probably 60% or higher. It's quite loud as far as decibels go. But the question I had for you is, I see, and I'm sure many of our listeners do as well, and you're probably aware of it, many ads on the internet now that claim to be the way to eradicate ringing in your ears. I've seen everything from putting on a set of headsets once a day and listening to some type of music, which supposedly has done miraculous things to rid the ringing in the ears. There are other methods that I've seen on the internet as well. I guess the question is, do any of those work, or is that just a lot of hype?
Yes and yes. Yeah, they might work, and they are a lot of hype. Like I started this off with, I believe it's a lipid. We sell it in our office for about $10 a bottle. About 15-20% of the people will say that it reduces their tinnitus. Well, that's the same as a placebo. In other words, if we put a sugar pill in those packages instead of an actual medication, we'd still get the same result. A certain number of people are going to say, yeah, that eliminates my tinnitus. Those are the minor cases, and I'm sure that all of these products have some people that are absolutely sure that particular product or that treatment or whatever it is has solved their problem. There are some home remedies too, Now, your case is you wear a hearing aid, if you don't mind my saying this.
Yes.
Do you notice that it's reduced when you put your hearing aids in, and that when you take them out at night, that it increases?
Actually, John, not a whole lot of difference.
Yeah, yeah. So that unfortunately is the case. I will stress, though, that had you not been wearing hearing aids all these years, it likely would be a much bigger problem for you, Joe. In most cases, the hearing aids at least stop it from increasing every year. But for people that don't have a hearing loss, or maybe don't wear hearing aids for whatever reason, the problem often is sleeping. When you go to bed at night, there's nothing else to focus on, and there's that ringing or that noise, whatever it is, coming at you again. In those cases, sometimes just turning a radio on, putting it in between stations so you get static, which is like a white noise, that will mask it in some cases. Now, in your case, even a jet noise isn't going to mask it. And unfortunately, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of different types of tinnitus also. Besides the different sounds, there's a tinnitus called external tinnitus. Most tinnitus is subjective or internal. The objective tinnitus means that I can put my ear up to the person that has tinnitus, and I can hear the ringing coming right out of their ear.
Really?
Right out of their head. Now,
Wow.
we believe it's some type of electrons going to work on the outer edges of the hair cells that's creating this noise. We really don't know what's causing that, but that sure tells you that it's not all in your head, all right?
Yeah.
But the best thing to do is to come into a professional ear, nose, and throat doctor or hearing aids specialist, audiologist, and see if you have a hearing loss. That's the first thing you need to know, because that may be the whole problem.
John, I've heard, and I think you started to explain this as well. This ringing is caused by the tiny hair particles in your ear that are not vibrating in sync with one another. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what the latest belief is. Is you go into your inner ear, past the eardrum. There's 3 little bones that connect the eardrum to the cochlea, or the inner ear. That's the part of your ear that looks like a snail. It's a tube wound up like a snail. So if you unfurled that tube and looked at it under a microscope, there would be several layers of microscopic hair cells, they're called. And the inner hair cells line the inside of that tube. And those are the ones that transfer the energy from mechanical energy into electrical energy and send it up the nerve to your brain. Those are the cells that your brain is listening to, that your brain is relying on for noises to interpret. And yes, we believe that those the electrons on the outer part of those hair cells are being overstimulated due to an electrical process, and that results in the condition that we call tinnitus.
Final thought or statement, John. When I mentioned a moment ago about one of the theories is to put on a set of headsets once a day for an hour, listen to this particular type of music to retrain your mind into getting those hair cells back into synchronization. Does that make any sense? Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, I've seen that ad, but you know, I've seen that going back to over 20 years too.
Yeah.
I have to go by the science, and the only thing that is actually showing any success rate above a placebo is for patients that do have a hearing loss to use hearing aids. Now, if you don't have a hearing loss and you have tinnitus, you may want to try some of these things. I mean, God bless you. If they work, they work. Just, I'm sure if I had that problem, there's no limit to what I would go through in order to solve it. So I can't say that they're no good. I just haven't seen any scientific results that tell me that they would be effective. So,
well, so as we were talking about all these subjects related to hearing, the one thing that stands out in all this conversation is it really makes sense to get with somebody that understands what's going on and get some real insight into what's going on, so at least you can evaluate what options exist and what might be helpful in a particular situation. And John Roberts with Palm Bay Hearing Aid Center, I want to ask you about that because I know in the past we've talked about the fact that you guys are very generous. In fact, I remember imagining why wouldn't somebody come in and have their hearing checked? Because as I understand, that's a no-charge visit, right?
Yes, anybody can give us a call. We'll bring you in. We have a beautiful 3,500 square foot facility right there near Palm Bay Road and I-95. We have 2 complete testing booths. We have 2 fitting rooms. We have a treatment room. We have an insurance department, and our team will get together and figure out what you need. And we won't charge you for that visit. Just come on in and let's talk. We'll test your hearing. We'll analyze your problem, and we'll see if we can come up with a solution. And if you have insurance, we'll try to find some way to pay for it too.
Well, that always sounds helpful.
Sure.
But even earlier in the show today, you were talking about suppose somebody has hearing aids that they maybe acquired somehow along the way. but they don't really have, maybe they're from up north and they're now down south and they need some help to see, well, are these things adjusted correctly? Is that the kind of thing that you would be able to help?
Absolutely. We do that every day, all day. We have snowbirds coming down with their hearing aids, and we welcome them with wide open arms. And we'll tune them up, check them out, clean them, dehumidify them, and look in their ears and work with them any way we can.
Yeah, I even remember it was a show that you were on, I think, with Joe some time back, and you got into a discussion about even ear cleaning, and I remember thinking, like, this is amazing what you're explaining, because we all think, go grab Q-tips, or worst case, maybe go get one of those things where you squeeze water in your ear and that kind of stuff. And you were saying that's really not the best way to do all that.
No, your ears are a self-cleaning mechanism. People with healthy ears don't need to clean their ears, and they should not clean their ears. Grab a packet of Q-tips, and what's the first thing it says? Don't stick this thing in your ear.
Right.
And there's a reason for that, because it's about as wide as your ear canal, and when you stick it in there, it's going to shove the wax up further toward the tympanic membrane, and then you have a real problem.
Yeah, so that is, I remember, something that your office also helps people with, too, ear cleanings, right, when it's needed.
Yes. We'll do wax removal the right way, yes.
So how do people get in touch with you? I guess we should probably be talking phone numbers and website and things like that. So as people have been hearing our conversation today, we've covered a lot of different things. We've covered, the price of hearing aids. We've been covering about why it's important to get started early about any signs of hearing loss or making sure what's going on with that. And then we've just had a good conversation about tinnitus, but probably this has sparked somebody saying, like, okay, I want to dig farther. How do I get in touch with John Roberts at Palm Bay Hearing Aid Center and figure out what my next step should be?
Grab your phone and call area code 321-369-9900.
So one more time.
321-369-9900. And
you have a good website too, right?
Yeah, just Google Palm Bay Hearing Aids.
That's right, and I think you're going to get a lot of good information. As I always mention to people, if some of these topics are interesting for you, we archive everything, and I do mean everything. John, you've got an article. Actually, it's coming out tomorrow. Is the 1st of April, right? And you've got an article coming out in the Helping Seniors newsletter, which hits the streets in, I guess, up to 14,000 copies of Senior Scene magazine. It goes to 500 different pickup points around the Space Coast area. But your article is titled Hearing Loss and Crucial Connections, and you're putting in you actually start out with a quote from Helen Keller that I thought was pretty interesting, and I'm gonna read it, and we'll kind of like close out a little bit with that. I am just as deaf as I am blind. The problems of deafness are deeper and more complex, if not more important than those of blindness. Blindness separates us from things, but deafness separates us from people.
Yeah, that's very profound, and that's from somebody that at one point in her life had perfect hearing and vision.
Wow.
And if you live with anybody with a hearing loss and you're suffering with the same issues that they have, and you know what she's talking about.
Yeah, so you got to pick up your copy. It's free. Your free copy of Senior Scene. And, of course, we also publish it out on the Helping Seniors website, which is helpingseniors@brevard.org. And so, anyway, with that, let's give the phone number one more time before we wrap up. This is for John Roberts at the Palm Bay Hearing Aid Center.
321-369-9900.
All right. Well, thanks, John, for sharing your expertise and wisdom, and we will be back
Kerry.
next Wednesday with more of Helping Seniors. On behalf of Joe Steckler and Kim Bernard, we'll see you soon.